There are many reasons that some of us feel invisible, and sometimes, strange as it may sound, we may even wish to be invisible at times in our lives. September is Suicide Awareness Month, and it should always be on our radar, no matter what the month is. What if we told you that you could banish invisibility once and for all and actually become invincible? Today, we're going to be talking to Nancy Lockhart, and we're going to share her story of how she moved from being invisible to becoming invincible. Stay with us for more on her unique story. If you're just joining us, welcome to Books with Brigitte. I'm your host, Brigitte Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa. Our stream is made possible by StreamYard and BeLive Media, helping business owners make live videos. This is an audience-centric show, and we are monitoring the comments, so please feel free to comment or say hello in the chat. If you've never watched the show before, you can let us know that you are new, type new in the comments or say something, I'm new, and we will then give you a shout out. In today's episode, we are talking to Nancy Lockhart and sharing her story of how she moved from being invisible to becoming invincible. Just a little bit of her background. Nancy leverages her 20 years of experience creating healthcare brands such as Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Kaiser Permanente, Medtronic and Herbalife, and she helps business owners access Fortune 100 brand and marketing expertise, enabling them to rebrand themselves and their businesses to become more profitable. But today we're sharing her personal journey of invincibility. That's really what we want to get into today. So let's not waste any more time. I do want to welcome her to the show so that she can share her story. Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brigitte. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so glad that you can join us today. We're talking about the book Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore. And the more I've spoken to some of the ladies, it's amazing how every journey has been incredible. And it was eye-opening when one of our co-authors said, it's not always about becoming visible. There are times in our lives when we do want to be invisible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've all had those moments, those not so proud moments in our lives, and we didn't want a spotlight on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what it's been like for most of us is that even if when we've had those not so great moments when we didn't want the spotlight, it actually became a opportunity to grow.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And once you've made that growth, you do want to shed visibility on it because you never know who it's going to impact, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes.
So tell us, what is the name of your chapter in the book, Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore?
My chapter is called A Would-Be Princess Finds Her Happily Ever After.
So is this, I mean, walk us through the journey. We don't want all the details. We do want viewers to be buying the book, which is available on Amazon. So if you're watching us on Amazon Live, it's in the carousel. But also welcome if you're watching us on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, wherever you are watching us, it's great. As I said in the beginning, it is Suicide Awareness Month because a
Yes.
lot of people who commit suicide feel invisible. And we're hoping that our collective stories will inspire you to know that we see you.
Yes.
We hear you and we are here for you. So, Nancy, let's dive a little bit into the background of your chapter.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because people have asked me, what's the princess connection? And I have no tie to royalty, but when I was very young, my Aunt Donna, who passed in 2016, I was very close with her, and I was the firstborn on that side of the family, so she doted on me quite a bit, and she made me feel like a princess, and I fully engaged into the fairy tale of being a princess. And she would dress me up, she would put wigs on me, she would tell me how beautiful I am, and so I felt very, very special. That was wonderful, but the flip side of that was that I really bought into the illusion of a happily ever after, as naive as that sounds, and that true love conquers all. And I think my growth through my story is really one about that can happen, but it's within yourselves versus something external creating that for you. So my story was really one about growing up and trying to kind of pursue that happily ever fairy tale, and being part of domestic abuse, and being moved by my own, my choice to move with my ex-husband to California. I grew up in the Midwest in the United States, and I was isolated, and so there was very little that I could do to reach out for help, or at least that's what I perceived at the time. I didn't, I kept it hidden from my family in the Midwest, and I know it wasn't easy when things came out, and for my family, but it was a part of my growth.
Nancy,
So it was.
can I
Sure.
interrupt you there?
Yes,
Isn't
absolutely.
it strange? Isn't it strange how that, family is meant to be the people that you trust the most, that it's part of
Right.
your inner circle, and that it's the circle that's supposed to protect you, and it's the circle that you're supposed to feel the trust within that circle, so that when things do go wrong, they're the people that should have your back and protect you. And yet, why is it that when we are so hurt, um, that we don't feel safe enough to talk to our circle?
Yeah,
I struggle with that.
it's a wonderful question. I know there were a couple reasons why I didn't. Number one, I in some way wanted to protect my family from worrying about me. I made this giant move, and I wanted them to know, oh, I'm okay, I can handle it. And part of it was shame. I had gotten into the situation I was in well before I said I do, and moved across the country well before, things were happening, physical abuse was happening prior to that. It's an interesting, thing that went on in my head, because there was a very, very loud, clear voice that said, you need to go, you need to move. despite everything that's going on. So I'm glad that I heeded that voice, because it enabled me to have the life that I have now with my daughters and my family. And so I'm very grateful for that part of it. But to answer your question, I think it was those two things, like trying to have the illusion of protection for my family, who, once they found out desperately, I know my mother, still to this day, it pains her to think about me going through that, but I think she appreciates the growth that I've had. And then the shame.
It's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I know from my own story, you know, when I decided to get married, my dad said to me, "You make your bed, you lie on it." You know, in other words, don't come back. And so
yeah, that's tough. That's really tough.
And I didn't appreciate it at the time. But there were times on reflection, you know, it always depends on how you see things. It did allow me to grow. It forced me to grow. To, you know, because oftentimes we kind of think, well, you know, if things don't work out, I'll just get a divorce. It's a quick fix to everything. You know, and I'm not condoning staying in an abusive relationship. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm just talking about people who are very flippant about their marriage vows. It's two very, very separate and different things.
Yeah.
So it did allow me to grow into sort of, you know, sort of like, well, whatever happens, I am going to make this a success. And, you know, I'm very happily married 30 years later. But, you know, things happen and you do need to talk to someone. How do you, and I understand that it's very difficult if you've made a decision, for example, to move away from your family like you did, to then sort of feel like, you know, if I do say things haven't worked out, it's sort of crawling back with my tail between my legs kind of feeling. And that's not the easiest thing to do. Maybe it's a bit of pride. I don't know what it is, you know, or a lot of pride.
That's true. And, you know, there was a point when, you know, it really propelled me to pursue, like, I can't be in this situation, is we were at a point in our marriage when we were thinking about having kids, and I just couldn't bear having my future children see me in some of the, you know, situations that I was in, with, you know, black eyes and swollen head and bruised ribs and it seems so dramatic now on the other side of the, you know, of the experience. But, you know, one of the things that I did, I was raised Catholic. I was married in the Catholic Church. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to go back to the church. I got married in the Midwest, and go back to the church and to the priest that married us. And I wanted to just say, I'm no longer married. And I didn't want to excuse it with the, you know, the abuse, but I just needed to be clear with that, with the priest. And I wasn't looking to pursue an annulment. That's a, you know, a Catholic Church term of like divorce, where the church almost forgives you for that, you know, being not married anymore. And it was a really, really amazing, this man was, I went to Catholic school. He was in charge of our school, and to go and to visit with him, I'm like, you know, I need to tell you this. It was very scary. And he was amazing, because he said, you know, Nancy, I said, I don't want to deny that this happened. And he said, that's not what annulment is. It means that you were ready to accept the sacrament. And that's all very religious, the rules and things like that, which I'm not really very practicing Catholic anymore. I'm very, very deep in my spirituality. But what he allowed me to do was realize I did not want it excused, and I did not want it to be disappeared, because it was such an important part of my life. And I did ultimately end up going through the process of getting that marriage annulled. So in the eyes of the church that I grew up with, and in the legal system in the United States, you know, my marriage, it was almost like it was forgiven, but not forgotten, because it was critical for my personal growth. So yeah, a lot of interesting spokes that come out from declaring your your independence, so to speak.
Did you at any point, because very often when women are in abusive relationships, especially with a spouse. I mean, you can be in abusive relationships in so many different ways. It can be in the
Mm-hmm.
workplace, it can be in your friend circle. There's many different scenarios. But within a marital situation, did you at any point feel that it was your fault? Because a lot of people, when they're stuck in an abusive relationship, they feel it's their fault, that they did something to deserve this kind of reaction or
Mm-hmm.
action from their partner.
Yeah, I think it's so common, and it is kind of how your mind twists your brain around
Re-
trying to
Mhm.
rationalize the situation. And I think, part of it was going back to the fairy tale. I was just, my ex-husband and I were really, really good friends before any romance started. And so I kept trying to go back. Like, if he just knew how much I loved him, he would stop hitting me. If he just remembered our deep friendship, he would stop. And so I felt like it was my responsibility to prove to him, I love you, the love of fairy tales that will never die. All of that grandiose feelings of I can prove that this true love will conquer all. And it was a real, challenge to get to the point of, what, it doesn't work out like that way in most people's lives. And some people have a very wonderful, long, enduring story, but that wasn't meant to be for that situation in my life. So yes, I felt very responsible until I finally, like, I put it up against that, like, oh my God, how would my kids react if they saw this happening to me? I can't imagine it for myself, putting myself in those shoes to see something happen to my mom in that situation, which would never happen. My dad was a wonderful man. And
Yeah.
I grew up in a great family. So, you could say, oh, you were abused. I wasn't, so it was still all of the things that people say, oh, it perpetuates itself. I didn't have that. So it still was very foreign concept for me to, like, even grasp, I am being hit. This isn't right.
Mhm. I think it's a tough, sort of realization. I don't know, how what it was like in your case, but sometimes women can feel like this is a dream. It's almost as if you're
Hmm.
having an out of body experience.
Yes. Yes.
Like you're having this is twisted reality, like you're in
Hmm.
the Matrix. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to wake up and this was just a bad dream. This isn't really happening. And I suppose that is some kind of a disassociative um, uh, reaction to protect yourself.
Hmm.
But at some point, you realize, I think when you sort of, these are physical bruises.
Yes.
Um, I'm not imagining, you can sometimes, when somebody abuses you emotionally, you don't always recognize it because it's insidious and it's happens over a long period of time. You're conditioned. But when somebody physically puts a fist to you,
Hmm.
you can actually see the bruise. You can't pretend like it's not there.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. I think, you bring up two very, very good points. One, that feeling of, invisibility. I always go back to a point in time when I was crouched down on the floor, um, and my ex-husband was kicking me. He was a sheriff and he had steel-tipped boots, and they were very they hurt. And I just felt like, okay, I'm just going to disappear from my body. Like, I thought that. I didn't do it, but I was like, if I'm going to get through this, if I just remove my thoughts from this situation, I'll be okay. Um, so that feeling of, I just want to disappear. I just don't want this to be happening. This isn't part of my narrative was very real. But that whole idea of the physical versus the emotional abuse, Brigetti, I would sometimes look in the mirror at my face and I would go, listen, Nancy, at least you have something it's proving this is not right. And I would think about, what if someone was emotionally abusing me, which I'm sure in some respects there was some of that, just given the nature of, the dynamic of abuse. But I was like, this is proof. You've got to do something about this. This isn't right. This isn't normal. This isn't what you deserve. And so I would often think about people that are just like being manipulated, gaslit, all of that stuff that isn't something you can stare in the mirror and go, this sucks.
Yeah. So without divulging too much, because I really do want people to go and buy the book and read your story. What was the difficult part for you of seeking help? Why was it so hard for you to seek help with the physical abuse?
Yeah, I think, a lot of it, again, was the shame of being in the situation. And once I got over the illusion of the fairy tale, it was the shame of like, I should know better. People are going to judge me. How could I let myself get into that situation? And you know what? I think by the grace of God, my ex-husband worked at night and I worked during the day. And so it gave me some breathing room, so to speak. And through my work, there was an employee assistance program that was offered, for legal or, psychological advice. And I decided to reach out to that program and ask for help. Now, when I first did it, it was the first time I had verbalized I'm being physically abused. And unfortunately, the person on the other line did what you're not supposed to do. She's like, oh my God. And I was like, I want to hang up the phone and disappear and not pretend that happened at all. But ultimately, I was connected with a woman that I still see today. So she's seen me through ups and downs of life, and I'm sure, she's amazing. I consider her my doctor, but also someone who has my heart and soul at front and center for me. So I'm very grateful that I was able to make that connection with her at that time. But that was the real catalyst of me like shifting. I guess the thing is you never like really think about your resources when you're in that situation, because you can cover it up and like, I can't get out. I don't know how to, my husband's a police officer. What am I going to call the police? It wouldn't have mattered.
So that was the difficult thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
Being in a position, because your ex-husband was the sheriff, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
He was the police. So what would have happened if you went downtown and said, my husband's abusing me? What would the likely outcome have been of that?
Well, I think I probably never thought of like leaving the house with my face exposed to be, talk about having all this pride. But if I thought of calling, and he had one time said, call the police. And when I decided to leave, and my husband and I were talking about this, it was quite civilized, our separation after we decided to, but I was in bed and his sheriff friends had literally came into my bedroom, woke me up and said, why are you leaving him? What are you doing to him? So the fraternity of of police they were very close, and it was, very much like they were looking out for him. I'm sure they didn't know the whole story. They knew his side of the story. But in that instance, it's kind of like I would have probably called, he would have intervened and said, my wife, or I wasn't at that time, my girlfriend is just having a bad day and she overreacted, and he flashed his badge and they'd be on their way. Now in the United States, laws are very different now, where if there's any kind of a, inkling of any kind of abuse, that the police have to intervene regardless of who's pressing charges. And thank God that that's there, because I think that was something that held me in like, I have no way out of this. I don't know how to do this, So, yeah, I think for people going forward, like really examine what resources, who you can reach out to, and you will be amazed at the people that want to help, that had no idea, and they will take you in their arms. When I left, my dear friend let me sleep on her couch, and it was the hardest night of my life, leaving my marriage despite everything. I desperately just wanted to go back because it was what I knew. And yet I endured. I was like, okay, God, you got to help me with this one, because I know there was one part of my brain that knew and the other part of my brain that knew the life that I knew. And so going back seemed like, okay, well, at least I know what I have to handle. In this new life, I have no clue the next step that I'm going to take.
I think, it's very easy for people to say, leave,
Yes.
but it's not that cut and dry to
Mm-mm.
leave, to go into the unknown,
Yeah.
and not knowing what's going to happen tonight or tomorrow or the day after. And that's, it's more complicated, obviously, if you do have children and young children at that.
Yes.
But even if you are just, even if you don't have children, there's nothing easy about it. It's a very
No.
hard decision to leave something that even this, it's a weird phenomenon how a lot of people speak of being addicted to the abuse,
Yeah. To the drama. Yeah.
to the
I,
drama.
mhm. Yeah, there was a lot of drama in my first marriage. That's for sure. It can be very, very, challenging. It just went against the whole script that I had for my life. And that was very difficult. But the idea of, the potential children, it was just like, I can't bear to have that happen to them. And, the thing is, my story is a lot about the abuse, but there's still, you get through, I left, I started a new life, and there's still things that still challenges and issues and things that life brings forth to you that you can choose to let it happen to you, or you can let it happen for you and look for the opportunities for growth. And that's not easy, but it does take
No.
trusted people, friends, my therapist, my family, and my dear friends. And of course, it's amazing with this book. I've gotten, 28 new dear friends that we, while not shared the same story, have a similar story of going through, some kind of trauma and then coming out stronger and wiser and wanting to just support and share with the world our stories, which just it is wonderful. I encourage anyone that's in a situation. This book is so powerful and in such a ray of hope for people that are, that think there isn't hope. There is. And you know what? We're all just wanting to share and support anyone that's going through any one of our situations in the book. It's been an amazing, Linda Sunshine West brought together these women in a magical way. And I've told her that I'm like, you have magic in you because we are so close. You're in South Africa. I'm in the United States. I feel like, we're sisters. I do. I feel very, very close to the women in this book.
It has been an amazing journey, and Linda has been, it was her brainchild,
Mm-hmm.
this book.
Yeah.
And, she comes from a place of being really authentic.
Yes.
And to get to where she is, she started her journey by journaling every single day for an entire
Yes.
year, about her fears and, and how she overcame that fears. And she was consistent every single day. She would
Yeah.
journal what she was afraid of, and then, and that's how she overcame her fears. And it's not what I like about what we've done and what Linda does is that it's not the absence of fear, but it's doing
Mm-hmm.
things in spite of the fear and growing, um, because of that. And so that's really what the emphasis is on. Nancy, if you were to sit across the table and have a cup of tea with a woman that is now stuck in an abusive situation, what would you say to her?
Well, first of all, from an emotional perspective, which I think is the initial, you're not alone. It's not your fault, and you will get through this. You have to make the choice to get through this. It's not going to be easy, but you will be stronger and better on the other side. And then I would sit down and go through the tactical ways. Okay, what are your options? What do you have in savings? What do you have? What where can you go? So I think sometimes we can talk a lot about, you will get through this, but if I can help
What's the
someone,
practical side?
right? How do you, well, how, it's really nice to be, on this side of the, of that, and go, you can get through it. But without some practical guidance, a roadmap to get from point A to point B, with support, I think, it's nice and it's hopeful. But being in that situation, if someone would have told me that, I would have just been like, there's no way I can get out. Are you kidding me? Look at my situation. There's no way. So if I could do that and help someone with my experience and what I did, and help them to find their resources, that would be amazing to be able to offer that help.
Absolutely. And one thing that Christy pointed out about our book, Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore, is that every single chapter has got a link to the individual website of
Yes.
the author. So you can reach out to each one of us via our websites.
Yes.
So if our story resonates with you, and you find yourself in a similar situation and you just want somebody to talk to, because as we mentioned in the beginning, very often right in the beginning of your journey towards recovery, it's very hard to open up to your family, and it may be easier to reach out to someone that you resonate with. And so if you resonate with our story, all of our websites has got a contact me section. So reach out to us there. And, if you, because a lot of people feel hopeless, and that is why I feel we do want to also speak to people who are feeling that hopeless, that they think that suicide is an option.
Absolutely.
And we want to say to you, before you go there, or if you're feeling that way inclined, please reach out to us. Any one of us in the book,
absolutely. And I do want to say, the links, I think, in a lot of our stories are links to our, to our businesses or our practices, that type of thing. But please, the women in this book our priority is to spread this hope and our stories, and to help whoever we can. So don't feel like it's not the right message to go to the website to talk to someone. If that's the way, the avenue, and we're opening our arms to you and inviting you to reach out to us, then please do it, because it brings us joy. It gives us fulfillment and purpose to be able to share our stories and to provide a way to help and bring hope to people. So I would thank you so much, Brigitte, for bringing that up, because we are, this group of women we're people first people. So we want to help.
I know. And, it's been every single time that we've been on the same screen together talking. It's amazing how we couldn't be more diverse if you tried.
I know.
We live in different parts of the globe. We come from different, situations all together. But there is just that one common thread, that we've all experienced pain at some level, different experiences. But I've been amazed at how many times somebody says something and I'm like, oh my goodness, that happened to me too. And it's amazing how in our journey, it's amazing how our minds work. Our minds protect us, and sometimes we forget things, or we don't realize that something's happening to us, especially in an abusive relationship. You don't often you don't even realize you're being abused until somebody says to you, but that's abuse, and you're like, really?
That's so true. It's so true. There's a lot of things that have unfolded for me where I'm like, oh my God, I pushed that, suppressed that in some way. And not that I want to raise I don't want to be in any way considered a victim, but it's like, oh my gosh, I did go through that. And now I'm so much stronger on, having gone through it because of the support that I had, because I reached out for support. But you're absolutely right. It's an interesting amnesia that we have, where we and then we start writing about it and a lot of emotions come forward and vulnerabilities within your own self. But then when you can kind of take a step back or come together as we have in this book, it's amazingly powerful. It's a true gift.
I know it's crazy how many aha moments I've had, when somebody says this happened or that happened, and I go, wow. Or I may have forgotten those details, and I
Yeah.
think also comes from often the abuser makes you believe that the abuse never happened or it isn't happening. It's in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You're imagining things, and it's
Yes. Oh,
amazing.
yes.
That those are sort of all narcissistic tendencies of abusers,
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
where they try and sort of twist your reality and make you want to think that this is normal, or it's
Mm-hmm.
just your imagination. It never happened. It wasn't that bad.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I
Yes.
gave you a blue eye, but it wasn't that bad.
Right.
Okay, I picked you, but it wasn't that bad. You
Yeah.
know, uh,
Or the
with
promise, it won't happen again. I promise. I promise. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Um, where it becomes kind of minimized. I apologize for that. Whatever the rule is in their mind of making it acceptable, or forgivable,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I find that often that they do, narcissistic behavior is to minimize um
Yeah.
the wrongdoing. It's not so bad, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um and they think that just sort of saying, I'm sorry makes it okay, and yet tomorrow they'll do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a never ending cycle, and so one does need to find a safe space. And again, I want to say to people out there, if you are in a situation, find one of the stories, find one of the
Yeah.
ladies in the book, reach out to us. We are opening ourselves to being contacted. And something, I think it was Christy that mentioned it, one of the ladies mentioned it, there's nothing special about any one of us. We're just ordinary people
Yes.
who've had experiences. And I think thanks to Linda Sunshine West, who's motivated us to share our stories. And hats off to each one of the ladies who decided to share.
Yes, indeed, indeed. And I think, Linda, just a little, kind of plug for Linda, she did so much. We wrote our stories, we told, our truths, but Linda made everything happen for us as far as supporting us through the whole process, promoting us and she's continuing to do that. So if you're ever thinking about writing your story, contact Linda Sunshine West at womenactiontakers.com, because you cannot get more support. And I'm telling you, she creates this space of amazing, women and friendships. And you will not feel like a number. You will not feel like just another, client of hers. You will feel connected to her, just like we're all connected to one another, but at the leadership of her. So I encourage people to reach out to her. And, she brought us to #1 status in 6 categories before we launched our book, our official launch date. So she knows what she's doing.
But I think I also want to let people know that if you are wanting to write your story, it may seem like, and that was certainly true for me. I've been trying
Mm-hmm.
to write a book for the longest time, but I keep envisioning myself like, I don't have 6 months to set aside to write a book. I
Yeah.
just don't. And I don't want to spend 10 years writing a book. And when Linda approached me to be part of this collaborative book, I thought that's my opportunity. I can write.
Mm-hmm.
I may not be able to write a whole book. I don't have the time or the capacity to write a whole book, but I can certainly write a chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's you and you're currently thinking, I would love to tell my story, but I don't know where to start. I don't know how to write a
Exactly.
book. I don't have the time to write a book. A great place to start is a collaborative book.
Yes.
Um,
1000%. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. It was on so many levels.
And Linda's got it figured out. She
She
really has got it
does.
figured. I mean, she's like a house on fire. She wrote her first book. She started writing collaborative books herself, but she's got the whole process of writing a book um, with collaborators, getting the book printed, getting the book marketed, getting the book onto Amazon in
Yes.
ebook, in printed form, in getting it to bestseller status. She's got that entire process. But I don't know, I want to almost say she's got the whole thing perfected.
Yes, I agree with you. And an international bestseller now, so what that means for us, because all of the proceeds are going to Dress for Success to help other women. And
I'm
that's
so
what I
glad you
mean.
mentioned that. I'm
But that's
so
what I
glad. I
mean.
forgot about that. Let's
Yeah,
talk
but
about
that's
that for a
the
second.
absolutely, absolutely. But it's part of what I said. We're people. We're not trying. We want our messages out. We want to help as many people as possible. And of course, Linda, she asked us, what do you guys want? Who do you want to support in a charity from this book? And we all got together and decided on the Dress for Success organization, which is not just about clothing. It's about giving women that arm reach out to help support them, whether it be putting together a resume or doing mock interviews or just getting the confidence to take control of their life and get back out into the working world. So I think we're all really proud of that organization. So every aspect of this book is about us sharing and giving. And so again, encourage you to reach out to any one of us if you're feeling any inkling of despair and like nobody can know or understand, or you're ashamed. We've all been there and we want to help you.
Absolutely. So we help we extending a hand of help to you, whoever, if you're watching this live or on the
Yes.
replay. We're extending a hand to you. If you're in a situation where you feel you have no way out, reach out to one of us. But if you buy the book, you're supporting this wonderful organization, as Nancy just said, Dress for Success. It's a registered non-profit
Yes.
charity that empowers other women to achieve economic independence through a whole variety, as Nancy just said, of things. It's not just about the money, but there's many ways in which to help the woman. So you're buying a book, your money spent on buying the book is going to a very, very worthy cause. So I implore you to buy the book, whether it's the ebook or whether it is the hard copy, the paperback. It really. I'm going to put you on full screen for just a second so we can so you can show that book.
Absolutely. There you go. It's a beautiful cover of a woman coming out of the darkness, an amazing title, and an easy read. It's really, it's a great, easy read. Maybe not easy topic-wise, but very, and it feels so good to touch the book. Let me tell you guys, get the book.
It really is a beautiful book, and I do love the symbolism behind, the reason why Linda chose that particular cover was, as you said, just to show, women coming out of darkness,
yes,
into the light. So it wasn't a matter of just sort of randomly looking at a random picture. There's a lot of meaning behind having chosen that specific image for this book.
Yes.
So a huge shout out to Linda Sunshine West for doing a phenomenal job on getting this published. And again, just saying, if you really want to get into the space of getting published, Linda knows exactly what she's doing. She takes care of the entire process.
Yes.
All you have to do is write your chapter. She'll give you a deadline. She'll tell you when it's due. She can predict the entire process. She knows exactly how long each sequence lasts. And she, you really do not have to do a thing other than
No.
submit your chapter. She'll give it back to you to make corrections. Whether you have 1, 2, or 3 iterations, but she's got a timeline, she's got it down pat, she's got it all figured out. You won't have to worry about a thing about the actual
Yeah.
process after you submit your chapter. So if you've dreamt of being an author, reach out to Linda.
Yes. Yes. Do. If it's on your bucket list, do it. Do it. You will be thrilled with the process.
Nancy, thank you so much for sharing. People, please, read Nancy's chapter in the book Invisible No More, Invincible Forevermore. We're not heroes. None of us feel like we're heroes. We just feel, we are just ordinary people who've had experiences, and we found the strength through the encouragement of Linda to share our stories with the world. And I think almost every single one of us has felt that this is just the beginning.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
It's
Definitely.
kind of, I think each one of us want to write. We found the courage through this experience that we want to write more and share more, because it's not just been empowering for us. We hope that it will. Well, the feedback we've had so far from other people is that our message has empowered them.
Mhm.
We've had so many messages so far. So,
Yes. It's yeah.
so go get the book.
Yes, for sure. And I know when I started writing, we had a number of words to write. I started writing, I went 3 times the amount of writing. I was like, and I wasn't even out of high school. So I have another book in me.
I know it was crazy when Linda first gave me the word count. I thought, can I write that many words?
I know, I did too.
But once I got started, it was very difficult. And I had to cut back, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how do I reduce this?
I know exactly what you mean, Brigitte. I did the same thing. I was like, oh my God, I better word count. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so over. I haven't even gotten to the good parts. So.
Absolutely. Well, it really has been an opportunity for growth.
Yes.
I think just having this experience of sharing our stories.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy, thank you so much. This was amazing.
Thank you, Brigitte.
I want to say thank you to everyone who's joined us.
Thank you.
Watching, much appreciated. Take care, everyone. And again, if you are in a space where you are feeling suicidal because of your situation, we hear you, we see you. Please reach out. We're just ordinary people, and we are opening our hearts to you. Do not feel that you are alone or that you are invisible.
Yes.
Do reach out.
Please.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. Stay safe. Until next time, it's goodbye for now.
Goodbye.
You have a story that is unique, a story that needs to be heard, a story that people care about. So it can get them to stand up for what they believe in. It can inspire them to change. It can inspire them to take action. It can inspire them to care. Care enough to be the light to someone's darkness. Care enough to extend a helping hand to someone who's down and out. Care enough to call things the way they are and see them for what they could be. Your story can make a difference. Your story can save a life. Your story matters. One story changed the entire world. Your story could do the same. All you've got to do is own your story.